Today's episode is brought to you by having multiple Discord instances open.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, man. Just still lamenting football. What can you do?
Rip other teams that aren't the Patriots. But, I mean, in fairness, Tom Brady got beat up pretty hard on that. Roughing the passer
It was a brutal play. Just can't. Anyways, we'll stop because I could fill an hour and a half easily on those two games. And none of it would be calm, rational discussion like hopefully we can have today about our four remaining teams that we need to do our previews for here.
Yes, or at the very least, calm discussion. It doesn't need to be rational.
Yeah, it's true.
We don't need to be overly aggressive about it. Although maybe we will be because of the teams that we're talking about. One of them went 0-40 last season. But before we get into that, let's talk about the rest of the High Noon world. And we've got some interesting stuff happening today specifically, which we'll get into in a second. But Blackwatch Report, of course, always and forever going. The grind never stops for Tier 2 contenders, Tier 3, Path to Pro, etc. So make sure to check out the Blackwatch Report, hosted by Thornrain and Kyle Wynn. They have their own feed. They have their own Twitter, all that good stuff. Make sure to check it out. And returning this week for Season 2, Episode 1 is none other than many people's favorite. I won't say everyone, but many people have come up to us and said it is their favorite show, Foul Play. Back tonight, live, all sorts of good stuff. All three hosts are going to be there, myself, Deathblow, and, of course, the one and only not this week, Lord A. Smith.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun getting back into the swing of things there as far as fantasy is concerned. If you guys didn't play Fantasy Overwatch last year, it's improving this year. So if you took a peek, didn't like what you saw, got out, tune into the first episode. We're going to be talking about the new platform that came out, everything that you need to do to get ready. And Blevins, we actually did a mock draft on Thursday with some of our Discord listeners. And we're going to be covering that, going over what our teams were, some of the things we noticed from the draft, and getting you guys prepped and ready because it's draft season, Blevins. We're here. It's time. The platform's launching soon. So we need to get people ready, and that's what we're doing today.
We've got the inside scoop. So
we do.
We're what's his name from Lord of the Rings? Slugman, or what is the one advisor that's just whispering into the king's ear?
Oh, I don't remember.
Slugworth.
No,
exactly. Slugworth is from Willy Wonka. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking.
Yeah,
we're Dark Confidant is all I'm saying. And we, the player being, yeah. All good stuff. I don't know where I was going with that. I kept when I was saying it, I kept thinking like, man, this is the first Magic reference we've had in quite some time, and then I just got completely sidetracked. But not getting sidetracked. Power rankings contest in the High Noon Discord. You can still get in. You've got up until the first day of matches, which is February 14th. So get in there, get your power rankings in the channel and Discord. Link, if you're not already in the Discord, it will be in the description below. Make sure you jump on that. Last bit of housekeeping here is we've got a couple new patrons this week. We have 2 new patrons at the $3 level. Huge shout outs to AJ and Jeff S. Thank you so much for the patronage. Really does help us. Guys, remember, if you want to be like AJ and Jeff S., you can go over to patreon.com/HighNoonPodcast. Helps us do all the awesome stuff that we try to do. Go to events, purchase equipment, etc. It really does help us do all that stuff and keep the content coming for you guys. So patreon.com/HighNoonPodcast, really a huge help. And it gives you a nice special little Discord title in the Discord to show that off to all the people in the Discord. And if there's ever an argument and you've got that tag, we will probably side with you unless it's a Boston thing, because Deathblow has morals. He won't do it.
Can't do it. Not allowed.
Won't do it. Not a lot. But briefly, let's talk a little bit about what we did last week. Deathlow, anything fun and exciting for you this last week?
I've been getting pretty into Sea of Thieves lately. I've been playing a good amount of that.
I've been getting a little the hankering.
The itch, dude. The itch. It's so much fun. I actually hit Pirate Legend this weekend. So the grinding part of the game is officially over. The largest part of the grind. Yes, there's still room to grind. Don't worry, I'm coming for your Athena's, guys. But yeah, so I've just been kind of hanging out with that. Doing my best to get into the swing of things there. They got a new arena mode coming out, which is much more my speed than the original game, and I liked the original, offerings that the game had quite a bit as well. So it's kind of like bringing in that competitive PvP arena aspect to it that I think will be a lot of fun. So yeah, I've just been grinding that, playing that. Decided on being an Isabel main in Smash Brothers, so I've been learning that as well.
Such a bad choice.
It's a phenomenal choice. I'll just fish you off the side of the map. Don't worry, I got you. But yeah, so just been having a lot of fun playing those games. And listen, I mean, we're like right here, Blevins. So I've been getting ready for the Overwatch League season as well.
Yes. I've been playing a lot of Smash Bros, MTG Arena, and literally freezing to death because it's like single-digit degrees Fahrenheit out, and my car literally froze today.
I woke up, I think it was -9 at my apartment.
Jeez. Yeah, it was a consistent 2 degrees today for me. And, yeah, my car is actually frozen, and I had to call AAA in the morning. It's pretty bad. But let's move on here to news. Couple of bits of news here before we get into the last bit of the team previews. Florida Mayhem parted ways with I never figured out how you're supposed to pronounce his name. Ryder R2 Deer. I don't know.
It's been Ryder the whole time, and I'm pretty sure we've told you every time. But
every time I've been told, I have immediately forgot. I already don't remember what it's supposed to be, but I'm going to say Ryder. And they've added Promise to their coaching staff. So interesting that they would change their team to mostly Korean, get rid of their Korean coach, and add a non-Korean coach.
To me, that's less interesting than just the timing of doing this. Like, what part of, 2 months into scrimming for the season made you think this is the moment?
Right.
This is our time. We must change our head coach. This is all par for the course with this team as far as everything I've seen from them. Everything seems reactionary. I don't feel like they have a plan. I don't feel like they have anything they're building towards or doing. They're just kind of, well, we'll just run scrims, and we don't know what kind of players we want. We haven't seen them play yet. We don't. How could we know what kind of players we want? And it's just, I don't understand what's going on over there. We gotta. I don't know. I hate to say it. We gotta find our boy Bare Hands a better home, because I think they might drag him down. He's just the only thing I like about what's going on over there. It's just still, and yeah, I don't know. They're just it's a constant state of confusion is what it looks like to me, and I just don't understand. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it's hard to get worse than you got last season, but there was worse than them last season. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting season, I think, for Florida, and probably not.
Yeah, I mean, in Bare Hands we trust, so I'm gonna withhold judgment. But yeah, it does seem like an interesting decision. The only thing that I can think of that makes any amount of sense to me is that they've been looking for a new coach this whole time, and they finally found a new coach, and they didn't release Ryder. They didn't want to be without a coach, I guess, or maybe he was just serving out the rest of his, he was still employed until they found a coach.
This contract was signed, and it was for one full year, 365 days or something. Yeah. That could certainly be, and I certainly hope that's the case, because if they were operating under a lame duck coach while they got ready for the season and then made a switch then. So hopefully you're 100% correct on that, and that change was made behind the scenes 2 months ago, and we're just finding out about it now, because there's no reason for them to ever announce the what's it called, the roster moves or the contracts that they sign. Like, they can just announce them whenever.
So Monkey Prince in chat brings up a good point, is that their coach came from Mayhem Academy, so they had access to him the whole time. So your timing question is raised again. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, like, they're either going to perform or they're not. It's probably, well, I don't know. It's another, I guess, piece of the puzzle added or maybe removed from the Florida Mayhem's puzzle of a season. So another talking point for them, but not necessarily an interesting one. So let's move on here. Last bit of news we've got here is another late roster addition. It is I'm gonna butcher the name. I practiced with Twitch chat beforehand, but I'm still gonna mispronounce it. Jichiren has been added as a main tank to the Chengdu Hunters. He comes from Miraculous Youngster and most recently Team CC in Chinese Contenders. So another bit of talent for the Hunters. I'm not sure. Again, we've made it loud and clear that we don't necessarily watch a lot of other regions contenders, so not sure what to expect out of him. Death, do you have anything on him, or?
Well, I mean, like you did say, he comes from Miraculous Youngsters. He's one of those guys that we all kind of thought would have been signed by Shanghai last season, but just wasn't old enough. Now he comes in. To me, again, this is another timing thing is what makes this questionable. I'd be very pumped about this signing, and I think that was a very good signing if they just made it 2 months ago. But they literally put out the announcement on their Twitter. It had to have been within 1 hour of me saying the words on last week's episode. If we see any player signings here, it's a team in panic mode. You know what I mean? That like has their guys in scrims, aren't happy with their performances, and think they need to make a change right now. And that's what this is to me. Now, listen, Chengdu's going to be at the bottom of my power rankings almost no matter what you do. I do like them kind of long term, but I don't have a lot of hopes for them this season. I don't know that adding a main tank at this stage of the game, levels you up tremendously, but I guess I kind of got to throw that out because we saw Fissure came in literally partway through the season, made a big impact. So better late than never, but I think this could have been it would have been much better if, like, guys, and we're going to be talking about this and hitting this in the team previews, like, sign backups. Yeah. Like, sign backups. Just do it. Like, stop handcuffing yourself and handicapping your team by not having them. Chengdu is at least getting closer to the correct roster construction here that they needed, but it's one man's opinion against what seems like a whole league full of people that think there's at least one position where they don't need a backup. That's just crazy to me. I don't think you necessarily need to have a backup main support and a backup flex support, but couldn't you get yourself just a really wide hero pool support player, somebody that can just step in and be adequate in the event that it's needed? All these guys in tier 2 want to get signed up. There's plenty of them that would sign a contract to be a backup. And I don't know. I'm glad Chengdu's getting this piece in. Wish they'd done it earlier, but does kind of, to me, nod in the direction of probably not going to be a great season for Chengdu.
Yeah, it really does beg the question of, like, why are they making a change this late? And it's like, is it because there's turmoil? Is it because they thought that this guy really showed some promise? Like, it's really kind of a random timing almost for a tank. Maybe, honestly, maybe there's visa issues with some of the players. I don't know. There's
about to be a visa issue with Jikarin because he's getting his visa applications in now, and who knows when it's going to go through. That's another part of it. So Fissure at least got to play right away when he got traded. This edition, they think they need a new main tank. They might not have one on stage for stage one anyways. So that's going to be interesting. We'll see when he gets there.
It's going to be really interesting, and it's a very peculiar situation. So I'll be interested to see. But let's move on here to the meat and potatoes of this episode. Let's break it. Last batch, the final run of team previews here. DB, let's talk about the team, an infamous team. The literal, and I'm not even being mean here, I'm just stating a fact, the actual worst franchise in professional sports history in terms of win record or straight losses, number of losses consecutive, the Shanghai Dragons.
Yeah, literally nobody loses like Shanghai.
True.
It begs the question here, Blevins, how do you follow up an 0-40 season? Here's your answer. You clean house. You get rid of everybody. You bring in a whole new roster, a whole new coaching staff. That's in large part what they've done here. They did retain Fearless, Dia, and Gaguri from their previous roster. Two of those individuals were actually mid-season acquisitions as they tried to fix the disastrous start that they had and were unable to do so. So it's a little tough to blame anything on those guys, but at the same time, and I've seen this happen before, traditional sports and football, sometimes you just need to get rid of names that were the same from when you were terrible, and when you're you just need to reset. And I don't know how much we're going to see these guys as a result. But Blevins, why don't you read down the roster here that contains the majority of the old Hongdu Panther?
Yes, we're going to start, like you said, with Dia, Gaguri, Fearless. We also have DM, Diding, Youngjin, Guardian, Luffy, and Koma.
So we're going to start things off in the DPS situation here. It's basically the one position that Shanghai had that performed adequately last season. They never really get two pop off at the same time, I guess is the right way to word it. But they did have some high-level DPS play. Yeah, it was like when Dia was popping off, Ado couldn't quite get the job done against Houston. When when it was Undead in the roster, we were getting just not getting the follow-up from Dia or anything like that. The hero pools overlapped, so we're going to be seeing some change-ups here. And I think, personally, we're going to see Diding in there for the projectile DPS. The rest of his teammates are a little more hit scan oriented with their hero pools. He might lose a little play time to Youngjin if they need a Brigitte player. I think he's the one that'll handle that role for them in the event that remains meta for stage 1. They're just going to have a really hard time benching Diding here, just based on hero pools alone. Personally, for the hit scan role, I'm leaning towards Diem. Dia struggled with consistency throughout season 1, and again, this is a situation where you just need new faces. You need something different. So I would expect Dia to maybe be like their Widow in their pocket that they bring in kind of in a pine roll kind of a situation. Oh, okay. That's a little how I'm envisioning that. Really, I love how anybody that comes in off the bench is in a pine roll. He's the big boss, though. You gotta respect him.
The pine.
Absolutely, gotta ride that pine. All right, so, Anyway, so he would be the obvious choice, Dia, if he was able to perform like he did in Stage 4 against Houston every single time. But we've got enough tape on him to expect that not to happen. Youngjin is very, very flexible. So while he could take over some playtime in specific metas, I think personally I would go with DM. So that's the direction I'm leaning right now for their DPS core. As far as tanks are concerned, both of them are back, Gaguri and Fearless. They were retained. I think only Fearless is going to keep a starting job, though, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. Gaguri might just fall victim to what I've been talking about, just new faces, something different in here. It's a really difficult, I'll say this, though, in Gaguri's favor. She's still got a very good chance to win the role. I don't want to just pretend like she's not gonna see the stage or anything like that. She was a very rock steady player for this team. She didn't look out of position. She didn't look like she was screwing up a lot, but she didn't really stand out and make big plays, which we know I'm personally, at least, very partial to players that make those big, the Poco bombs, you know what I mean? Those big moments. They swing matches, they swing maps. That's what I look for in players when I'm finding people to root for, or if I was finding people to sign. We didn't see that from Gaguri, but she was smack dab in the middle of this colossal, huge failure of a team, and so even just looking okay, I think maybe we're underrating her a little bit. But I'm going to be leaning towards Guardian as the starter here for the off tank position, if for, like I said, no other reason than new faces. And the staff probably just wants to see that happen. So looking at support, there's no positional battles here. These are the Kongdu support players, Luffy and Koma. They don't have backups, so let's hope nobody gets the flu. Why are we doing this? I don't understand why we're still here. How did nobody? I mean, weren't they wearing literal surgical masks and stuff like that on stage last season when the flu was going around? And wasn't everybody? So we heard about this. Why did nobody learn that it might be beneficial to let somebody? Anyways, We
because that would make sense. We're not in that business.
It's been 2 seasons of me saying this, and it just doesn't seem to. And nobody that gets paid a ton of money to play this game or build a successful team seems to care. And it's basically an expansion team here, so we're going to skip the map record discussion for Shanghai.
They had a 0% win rate.
They were competitive in maps, so there might have been some information there, but with just so much of the roster reset, we kind of had this come up last week. Just you make enough changes, and all of a sudden, your home maps don't matter anymore. Your best map. Last season, these guys were 0-40, and I got to say, it is really, really exceedingly difficult to place them and give them a record. I'm going to go with it's not great, but it's not bad either. I do feel a little bit like I'm just kind of hedging my bets. I'm going to put them at a 500 record and say 14-14. The Kongdu Panthera roster was pretty well equipped. I'm expecting a slow start, but there's some solid players here. The one thing that I'm really looking for here is Fearless to level up. I was not sold on him last season. They don't have that backup. If they can get very good tank play from him, now that he's like reunited with his old coaching staff and things like that, he used to play for some of these coaches. So hopefully that helps them. It definitely makes me a little more confident that we're going to get some solid play from him. So I'm willing to put them in the playoff conversation, in the wild card play-in scenario, but I'm hesitant to go much higher than that. But it's going to be a common refrain today, since every team is an expansion team if Shanghai counts today. And it's just until I see it. Like, you've got to show it to me before I buy in, because I've seen too many teams with rosters I thought were stacked more in this game and other sports fall flat on their faces. So yeah, I'm gonna hedge my bets a little bit and call them 14.
Yeah, 14. I mean, you think about it, 14 additional wins is a lot of wins compared. Like, is there another team that could stand to have 14 more wins than last year?
To have an infinitely better win rate? No, nobody else can do the infinitely better win rate, but nobody will. There's teams with room to win 14 more games. Nobody will. Yeah, Shanghai is the only one with like a realistic shot.
I think you're right there. The one thing I will say that Shanghai obviously has over, maybe even as just a straight advantage over most teams, is that they are, like you said, kind of that fusion of an expansion team and a returning team. So they're going to have that infusion of, I mean, all eyes are on them, right? Like their first game or the first. I think it's either their first game or it's their first game. They play against another Chinese team, so they have the possibility to not be the first Chinese Overwatch League team to get a win. So like that first game right off the bat means a lot from a historical standpoint, morale standpoint. Like, you think of, like, if they win that first game, once you get over that hump, like, they might not be on paper like the greatest team in the world. They're definitely improved, but like, you get over that hump and it's like, okay, I'm gonna do a stupid high school physics reference here. It's like exceeding the coefficient of friction. Once you do that, it's like smooth sailing. Like, you can start, you can really start cruising. But you got to get over that first. You got to get over that hump, right? It's like getting over the hill. Once you get over the hill, it's smooth coasting down. But like, if on the other hand, like if they lose their first one, like it could spiral out of control. They do have, like, over the other expansion teams, like they have returning players. I believe they have at least some returning staff. So like we've kind of been saying, having that infrastructure is going to be, it's not going to be worth nothing. Although I guess Shanghai was one of the worst prepared teams in that they over prepared and were like scrimming for 16 hours a day. But now they know not to do that.
Do they?
So I mean, maybe they don't. But
yeah, people don't have to learn the right lessons.
That's
from
true.
their mistakes.
That's true.
And I don't know that they showed any signs of backing off as the season progressed. And that was the last point I wanted to bring up about this team. I put them at 14-14. I think it's pretty close to as likely that they're just at number 20 in the standings again. Yeah. And it's not because of these players. And if that happens, it won't be. I want to be very clear. It won't be because Kongdu Panthera was overrated or anything like that. Right. If this team falls flat on its face again, it's because their ownership is poison. and that poisonous attitude and their terrible way of running things bleeds into every aspect of the organization. I'm looking at you, Cleveland Browns. This is why you've been so bad for so long. You've been terribly run. And it's just the way it is. We see it in sports. You see players' careers get ruined because they go to the wrong team, and it's just an unfortunate byproduct of these things. So keep that in mind. If things do go south, don't beat up the players. Don't beat up the coaching staff. We know who the problem is, and they wear suits, and we don't see them on the stage or on camera ever. If that happens and you're a Shanghai fan, I say this with all sincerity and with all never wanting to do this, find a new team.
I don't know. I mean, I think you like your team for one reason or another. I feel like we're going to see a lot. I think one way or the other, there's no way that we see the same fandom and craze for the Shanghai Dragons this season for more than, I don't know, at an absolute maximum. And I mean the most that we could ever see anything even close to what we saw last season is one stage. And I think that's actually pushing further than I would say, but just for the ease of an estimation, one stage is what we'll see the crazed like Shanghai Dragons, everyone rooting for Shanghai Dragons thing. I'll
give it one win, and then things just drop off. Nobody wants to root for mediocrity. For whatever reason, the entire Overwatch community wanted to just root for just abysmal performances and absolute failure. And like, honestly, it was kind of embarrassing for Overwatch League, to be perfectly honest, what Shanghai did in the first season. We want to be taken credit, and for whatever reason, the community wanted to support that and rally around it. Nobody wants to do that for mediocrity. Nobody did that for Seoul. Nobody got all hyped up for Florida. Nobody got hyped up for Dallas.
Well, people kind of did get hyped up for Dallas.
People liked Dallas, but at the beginning of the season. But you didn't see people like flooding to them and fans going crazy, and they didn't like pack the arena on their days because they stunk. But they had a win, right? They weren't like so colossally bad that they were like famous for it.
Yeah, you got to min-max it.
No, so nobody wants to root for mediocrity. So yeah, I give it like one win, and then the magic will be done. But yeah, I don't know. And you were mentioning it earlier. Shanghai plays against the Hangzhou Spark in the first day of games. They are the first Chinese team to play in the season. So yeah, if they lose to Hangzhou gets the first Chinese team win. One Chinese team will win on the first day of Overwatch League Season 2.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be Shanghai, which is hilarious.
Right.
The question is, who do you pick in that game? This is the last thing we'll say about Shanghai. Do you think Shanghai will be the first Chinese Overwatch League team to get a win?
I do. Only because, like, if it was Hangzhou versus like Chengdu, or I don't know, something like that. Obviously Shanghai wouldn't win in that scenario, but like if Shanghai was playing against a non-expansion team first, I would probably just snap pick them to lose. But because they got another expansion team and they actually are carrying 3 people with the experience, the mentor, I think that factor alone puts Shanghai above Hangzhou to at least start the season. That's what my power rank show. So that's how
Interesting. So we will potentially see Shanghai Dragons for the first time ever in first place, technically.
And the last time ever having fans in the stadium. All right, moving on here. We've got the Toronto Defiant. Finally, we're back to a team that Blevins and I have a vested interest in. This is essentially our home team here. So Blevins, why don't you give us the roster?
Yes, we have got Envy, Neko, Ivy, Stellar, Yekpung, Aid, Asher, and Roki.
Yeah, so this is a team that was cobbled together from the O2 Ardient roster from Korean contenders, supplemented by adding in some players that were looking for a new home after Season 1 of Overwatch League. It leaves us with a tank line of Yakpung and Envy. Envy was, in my opinion, always kind of in the above average off tank kind of spot here for the Valiant. So I think, he lost the job due to some, Space being a little mechanically stronger than he is.
Space is good.
Space is real good. I do not doubt that. I'm not quite as high on him as some people are, but some people just think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And not that they're wrong. I'm just not. It takes a while with me. You got to do it over time. If you want me to talk about you as one of the best ever, it needs more than one season now, or one tournament in the old way of looking at Overwatch esports. But so I do think the Envy signing here is going to be very big for Toronto. There's no backup for either of these tanks. So yeah, Yakpung, it's no backups for tanks here again, guys, right? No backups. I just want to reiterate. What if somebody gets the flu? I guess we lose. But yeah, I'm less confident in Yakpung. This is more just a case of elevating from kind of mid-table Korean contenders onto the big stage. This doesn't, in my head, like, as much as I might like him as a player, like what I've seen when I've watched him, isn't a ton. I didn't catch a lot of OTR, but it's how are you going to go from a mid-table team in the lesser leagues, or go from there to playing in the pros, and you're supposed to dominate? I just don't have confidence that that's going to happen.
Right.
I hate that there's no backup here, because beyond the sickness aspect, I'm not confident in the performance here, and now I just want the other option to go to if he's not performing well, or even if he's not performing poorly, but like you just want to go for better synergy on your tank line. Look what the Valiant did last year. They went from mid-table to top tier, and nobody thought, like a lot of people anyways, thought getting rid of Envy was crazy. Like, whether you wanted to start playing space or not, like, what did you cut this asset for? He's a really good player. But anyways, I digress. Yakpung and Envy will be the tanks here for Toronto. Could be one of their better units overall, assuming Yakpung pans out and grows and flourishes. Love the coaching staff here, though, so I really hope they're going to be able to bring out the most in him. Now, in support, we have Neko. He's the lone flex player here. He was a standout performer on the Boston Uprising last year. He was one of those disgruntled former players that wanted out. The team had Aim God in reserve. He was more than an adequate replacement, so Boston, in my opinion, did the right thing, let the guy go. You're just not going to get a good performance from a player that doesn't want to be on your roster, so you should do your best to move them if they want to leave. And I think this whole thing really might have just been an absolute coup for Toronto. Neko's a really, really strong player. He gives them a lot of safety and flexibility by having him in their support line. It's important to note he carries a 3-game suspension into the season.
Still upset.
They don't have a flex support on the roster behind the man. What are they going to do for 3 games, Blevins? Okay,
yeah,
so the main
support.
If anybody thinks I'm overrating that, we saw New York lose one of their, it was stage 2, I want to say. Like, they missed a support player for 1 week, didn't have a backup, lost instantly. 1 game, didn't have him, lost.
I mean, it was against London, so it wasn't unreasonable.
Stage 2 London wasn't stage finals. It wasn't season finals London either. Or even stage 1 London. It was early in stage 2, so it was closer to stage 1 London.
I think it was week 1.
Yeah, it was very early, week 1 or week 2. But the problems for London were immediate, right? Like right after that match. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see play out here. But yeah, 3 games without Neko. They're going to have to just play 2 of their main support players. Those guys are Aid and Rocky. They're going to be competing for playing time. And honestly, the way I see it is we could even see a little bit of like the tryout process play out on the stage while they're filling in for Neko. What if they have those guys alternate? Who plays then? Who plays main support? Let's watch you play in a match that matters when there's no scrim bucks or scrims or all these things. Like, they're going to be on the stage anyways. So do you do that a little bit? Do you maybe try like Anna Zen, let them both play something within, or not Anna Zen, that would be both of them playing outside their hero rule, hero pool. But maybe like Mercy Lucio or something like that. We see some suboptimal but different support combinations, and let these guys kind of compete against each other on the stage. Might be cool. At least fun to think about. So I don't want to rule it out as happening. I would bank on Aid winning this job. Rocky wasn't even really on the O2 Ardiant roster when they signed him. He got signed on and then immediately picked up by the Toronto Defiant. So I don't think he even played or appeared on stage with them at any point. But yeah, and they also did announce Aid at the same time as Yakpung, who we know is starting, right? So to me, that reads as, here's your starting 6, and then at the end, they were like, and here's your bench.
Right.
That's not scientific or anything like that.
I think they did say these are our starters.
Okay.
At the beginning. I think that's what they did, if I recall correctly.
It would be nice, and I should look at the DPS section to confirm what I want them to do is going to happen. And speaking of DPS, I think they're going to keep the O2 combo of Ivy and Stellar together. Asher is on the roster. Season 1 with the Gladiators was very disappointing. He was good enough to earn his season 1 contract. Nobody was really questioning why they signed him. He was a top performer when they had him before, but he dramatically fell off the had to do it. The fall off was really bad here for him as the season progressed, and eventually he just never found the stage. Just found a permanent home on the bench there. Also, his hero pool is just really small for me. I don't know. I was never a big fan of this signing. I thought you basically are signing like a tracer one trick when you signed Asher. He's got a little bit of McCree in his past. That's all I really remember seeing him play much at a high level. So we'll have to wait and see if that really changes or if anything crazy happens there. But I'm looking for Ivy and Stellar to start at DPS. And yeah, no maps for an expansion team. So I look at this roster and I'm excited. I'm glad. I'm rooting for them. It could have been a lot worse. I just don't see a stage or season 1, their season 1 or a season 2 playoff team here out of them. I just see good pieces to build around, but there's a lot of question marks here on this roster. When you kind of have the slow start, this is not a team with, there's some veterans around, but they're still going to have a little bit of a slow start. You can talk until you're blue in the face and prepare these guys for what it's going to be like, but until they see it and experience it, it might be tough. The 3-game suspension, that's 3 losses out of the gate. I'm going to go 10-18 for them. I'm dropping a game here for my original just because it's going to be rough. But I don't even personally, I think they're going to have a hard time finding their way into the wild card. I think they're going to be one of those teams just outside that. But that's okay. For an expansion team, you don't need to be world beater. Adequacy is okay here. You're building something. You're trying to build, a long-term contender, and that might not be the easiest thing to do when everybody's season 1 contracts was, automatic. The team could just say, nope, keeping you, so season 2, we're going to see a lot of changing hands of these players in free agency, not in trades. So they've got some good building blocks, and hopefully they can do even more next season. I'm not writing them off completely, but too many question marks for me to say I think they're a shoo-in.
They definitely do have a lot of question marks. If they can pull off 1 out of the 3 games that they have Neko suspended, that would be big. I mean, that would be big in terms of confidence. It would be big, and like you get that little boost of like, hey, our guy's back, and like we've seen those types of things happen where San Francisco Shock certainly leveled up. I mean, this is almost like a mini level up, except it was like a level down beforehand, but we don't see that because the season didn't start, so it still counts as a level up. It's still technically a level up in my book. They're going to be leveling up on their 4th game, so we might be able to see them ride that bump. And like they get to, in a way, from a team morale standpoint, like if they start 0-3, they get to wipe the slate clean and be like, hey, those games, obviously they count for a season in the stage, but like they can be like, hey, this is us now. That wasn't us before. That was another team. That was our, that was our preseason. This is the real thing. This is the real deal. This is us now. And then they could really turn it around. And if they get a win or 2 out of those 3, if they get 2 wins, that's huge. If they got all 3, I think something crazy is happening. But, I think if they can pull 1 out of those 3 out, that's big, and they get the built-in reset regardless of whether they win any or not. So I'm not too afraid. I mean, on paper they're not the flashiest, strongest team out of the gate as an expansion team, but they do have a few more veterans than a lot of these other expansion teams, and I don't know. I think they can. They might be able to pull, I don't know, 10-18. It hurts me to think that that's the case. So I'm
well, you rooted for New York last season, so it's gonna have to. Once you're adopting a second team, once you adopt a second team, it's gonna be different. You can't root for 2 teams and have them both be at the top of this.
Whoa. In baseball, you could if you had an American League team and a National League team, but I don't know. I think well, every team from now until the end of time is probably going to have a rougher season than NYXL did in season 1. But I just front loaded all the success. It didn't get it in the end, so I don't know.
I don't know. Not every team is just automatically going to choke every single year.
That's what I said.
They have to be rougher.
They front loaded their success. They had instead of having a number of small failures, every loss felt like a stab in the heart, and then the playoff loss was just like a curb stomp. So, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I think I have them. It really depends. I could see them as one of the play-in teams for a wild card spot, but I'm not super optimistic about more than that. At least not.
For what it's worth, I've heard a couple players say, in AMAs and stuff like that, like who's one of the more underrated teams, and Toronto comes up, so we could be looking at and I think it was NYXL players that said it, the ones that immediately come to mind. So for whatever it's worth, like, I'm not saying they're going to be a bad team. They're going to hang in there with people, but a 3-game suspension last season is a very different conversation than a 3-game suspension this season. Sure. It's a much larger percentage of the games, and that hurts quite a bit. If you flip those games, those 3 that are suspended that I called automatic losses, let's say they go 2-1, what is that? That still puts them at pretty bad. So it's probably maybe I'm a little too far, but I'm going to stick with it for now. Sure. Yeah, I don't know. Season 2, though, I might get pretty hyped depending on
their season 2, season 3.
Yes.
Yeah, they're an enigma like a lot of the other teams, but we get to blindly root for them because they're 2 hours away from us.
Yes. Championship incoming.
Yes. Easy.
All right, moving on. We've got the Vancouver Titans here. 2 more to go. This is the second last one. Vancouver is here, ready to go, and Blevins, they are going to try to run away with the Season 2 title, and they've signed none other than Runaway from Korean Contenders to do it. Listen, I love bad jokes. You can't take them away from me.
I can't take them away from you, but you can get shame belled, that's for sure.
I don't care. That's fine. They did also add Repel from Element Mystic, but I don't expect them to start over Twilight. I'm just going to kind of go down the roster here. This is a very quick one. Bumper and January, the tanks, Slime and Twilight on support. Haxel and Stitch will be likely the primary DPS players. Haxel's not really expected to leave the stage. He didn't in Korean Contenders. I double-checked with people that watch all of Korean Contenders to make sure I had that right. And yeah, Hureg and Seomin Su are likely to rotate in occasionally. That's how they handled it in Contenders, at least. Hureg, I'm told, did not perform super well when he came in. So maybe they leave him on the bench a little more than they did back then, but I personally don't think so. I think these guys are coming in with an attitude. They think they should have been here already. They feel like they were left out last season. I think they're going to do exactly what they want to do, and it's my favorite thing about this team, other than the branding logo. But I really get that kind of attitude from them. I don't think they're right that they're going to just come in and win this league like they won the last league, but that's the exact attitude you want your players to have. Right. That's the exact attitude I want the team that I'm rooting for to have. So it's not a negative by any stretch. But listen, if fan excitement was a good indicator of Overwatch League success, they would be right. This would be the championship. Fortunately, it's not. Just ask Dallas and Seoul. Yeah, I'm not going to expect as big of a disappointment for this team as they had, but I'm looking more middle of the pack from Vancouver here. Slow start. Maybe they get a good chance to make a playoff run. I do view this as a playoff team, maybe top of the play-ins or bottom of the automatically seeded teams. They do have a lot of synergy. This is a very good team. Many of them could have joined the league and probably would have joined the league last season. I think they had that. They were one of those teams with the take all of us or take none of us strategy. Teams opted to take none of them instead of all of them, and Vancouver broke that for them this year. But listen, if you're going to be rooting for them, if you're a Runaway fan, this isn't meant to dampen your spirits, right? Like, just ask Philly. All you need to do is make it. You can be a mid-table team, okay, and you can just make it into the playoffs and find yourself in the grand, in the grand finals at the end of the season. So definitely have the tools here to be able to make that run, to be up there, at the end of the season in the playoffs, competing for a championship. But I'm not predicting that. Like, that's, again, you've got to show it to me that you're capable of it. I need to see them go deep into a stage playoffs or something like that to really buy into these guys as top tier contenders. So I'm not putting them amongst the elite. They've got some catching up to do, but I'm going to put them at a predicted record of 15-13, which, if you're remembering from past episodes, is right in that bottom of the seeded for playoffs, top of the that's where I am anticipating that to go. So whether my number is drastically right or not, I'm more trying to like guess at what the record would be for where I think they're going to finish in the standings than I am like, you know, I'm not going through the schedule going, I think they're going to win this one, and you know, but
do you think that they are the best expansion team?
Does Shanghai count?
Sure.
Yeah, probably, right? Like I think you have to put them there. The coming off, I mean, of the contenders regions, I think Korea, at least last season, was the best. They just won it, so the other teams aren't even bringing over the full roster, so they carry over more team synergy than most of them do. You know, you look at Kongdu, lost their main tank and one of their top DPS players, and they're going somewhere that already has those roles, so I guess it's fine, but. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think it's by a large margin, but I would put them as the top one, right? I'm pretty sure I did when we ranked them too. So.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I was just kind of curious here. And I mean, in terms of branding, they're definitely top 2 expansion team branding. I mean, I think it's really just preference. If you like the bubblegum pink. Or if you like bubblegum pink, or if you like the Yeti.
Yeah, the Yeti is phenomenal. Wins hands down there.
Probably gonna get both jerseys. Unfortunately,
I've got them like number rip no wallet. I've got them as like as far as branding goes, they're the number 2 team in the entire. Unique colors, you know, everything.
I do like the colors a lot. I still, you know. Every day,
new colors for the league. They stole their team's colors.
Well, yeah, NYXL still has a very solid place in my heart. But let's move on to our last team for tonight. We've got the Washington Justice.
Yeah, the team representing our nation's capital. I want to just read us the roster here, and then I will get through.
We've got Janice, Corey, Stratus, Sansam, Ado, Fazix, Guido, and Hyunwoo.
As good as I could have done.
I tried.
I don't know. His last name is Hyunwoo, so maybe we just say it like that, and so hope it's right. I don't know. Anyways, the tank line here is set in stone. Janice from NYXL and Sansam will be playing. There's no backups. Again, the flu. It's a thing. Look it up, guys. But overall, I'm fairly confident in Janice as a tank player. I'm willing to buy into almost a universal opinion of all the analysts, everybody like that talked about Janice as a quality tank. And, you know, just kind of believing that it was a play style mismatch in New York. Again, maybe just get yourself a backup just in case you're wrong. But he's coming over with his coach, so if anybody knows, it's Wizard Hyung who's going to be able to, you know, find the best uses for him. So I'm cautiously optimistic about Janice as a main tank option here. Sansam, I do not know much about, unfortunately, but we'll have to wait and see exactly how he performs and kind of get to know him as it goes out there. It's not like there's any other option, so we will definitely get to see it. For support, I do think we have a little bit of a positional battle on our hands. Guido and Fazix, I think, are going to compete a little bit for playing time, or have already probably in scrims competed for it. It's a bit of a toss-up to me who's the most likely to win that. I would personally put my money on Fazix, but I think Guido is in all likelihood better than he looked with Seoul, because when he played, Jae-Hong was tanking, and they had so many problems, and like Toby wasn't performing well, and that's not a air test to really judge him on.
Right.
So I think there's a good chance that he was able to outperform Fazix in scrims and take over the job there. Again, I'm leaning Fazix. This is a team that is going to have English speakers on it anyways, so it's not like, you know, you need to have him. They're all going to be calming in English, I guess, at the end of the day is what I'm getting at. So there's no need to like weigh that into things. So yeah, I'm leaning Fazix, but Guido's got a real shot here to find his way into some playing time. And then as far as DPS goes, I think Corey is likely to be the hit scan player here in Ado, formerly from Shanghai, who honestly pretty poggers with what he was able to do on Shanghai. I'm high on Ado. I like him quite a bit. Expect him to hold down the flex DPS position, and we've got Stratus coming in off the bench occasionally to kind of fill in. That's how I see it. It's a little not set in stone, I don't think, between Stratus and Corey. For me, though, Ado's the star of the DPS line, so I don't want to see him leave under any circumstances. I've heard a lot of hype about Corey. I didn't really see it when I saw him playing in contenders myself. Moments, but not enough to make me real confident here. All things considered, this has the potential to be a pretty solid roster, but there's a lot of unprovenness here. There's a couple of those guys that can serve as your kind of mentors and help people out. So maybe they get a faster start early on in the season and then kind of level off as everybody settles in. So maybe they're bigger stage one than they are kind of the rest of the way is how I would maybe predict this season, which is really in a large way the opposite of how I'm kind of predicting these expansion teams. But there's enough expansion teams that I think there's room for one or two to have a decent start, and maybe Washington gets out to that quicker start and then falls off later. There's another team I just don't see personally as a very serious contender for a playoff spot. But if Fozix can level up and really, prove that he's up there with the top off supports or flex supports in the meta, if Corey can stand toe-to-toe with the best, they're not all going to be playing Widowmaker anymore. Widowmaker might not be meta at all, but that's kind of the yardstick I judge these guys on, because that's what we saw in season 1. It's do I think Corey can stand up to Carpe on Widowmaker, Linkser on Widowmaker, Pine, take your pick of the top architects. There's so many elite, highly skilled DPS players on the hit scan role, and I just don't know that they have this here. There's the possibility that Janice is more what we saw on the stage instead of what the analysts were trying to sell us off the film or anything like that. So I don't know. There's a lot of question marks here, and that makes predicting them to be a success very, very difficult. I'm putting them at 11 and 17 to just kind of rip the Band-Aid off for Shrug-Off and get that over with. But yeah, I would guess outside, very similar to Toronto, a team with some building blocks for the future. Yeah. But, maybe just not even part of the wild card discussion this season.
Yeah, this roster and I guess Toronto to an extent has actually more so this roster, because it's a mixed roster. It gives me a almost a Philadelphia Fusion vibe of it's kind of a hodgepodge. It's a Franken team or Junkenstein's monster team, like we were calling them last season. Kind of pulled from all over. They, like you mentioned, they do have the experience. They've got players who are on paper very technically skilled and very high skill cap players who were in circumstances that did not allow them to adequately show their potential. Janice, Ado, Guido, you mentioned, all these players at points in time looked really good. Did quite well in short spurts, but they either weren't a good fit for the team, the rest of the team wasn't there, or the team was main tanking Jaehong for some reason. A lot of potential on this team. And you've got the new blood, you've got the, I don't know, this is honestly, Washington Justice might be my sleeper team. I'm not rooting for them. They're not one of my favorite teams, but in terms of I'm getting a lot of the same feelings I was from Philly at the beginning of the season. It's they have, they've got some Gigante players, they've got Carpe, they've got Shadowburn. Obviously we didn't know, we were unaware of the truth that is EQO at the time, but it was a hodgepodge of players. It was man, they didn't play the preseason, so we slammed them pretty hard for that. But I remember us being yeah, you know what? Philly looks like a completely terrible team because they're just this hodgepodge of stuff. They're not the Soul Dynasty, or they're not the, Lunatic High or Envious coming in and just having a preset team. They're a completely Junkenstein's monster team. We have no idea what this is going to be. This kind of feels like that, but it almost feels better than that. then obviously in retrospect maybe not, but this almost seems like they have more potential than what I thought Philly had at the beginning of the season, and obviously we saw
maybe starting with a few more tools than you thought Philly had when they got going.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up that you punished them for the preseason, because I was going to be like, oh, so you think they're going to do a Philly? Let's see what you thought Philly was going to do. Let's go to the power rankings from season 1, and Blevins has them dead last.
Well,
dead last. I believe, to quote you exactly, you didn't show up to the preseason, you're dead to me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said to Tucker Roberts on the podcast when I interviewed him.
I think so hopefully they can do a little better than that. You even did say you thought it was going to be better. So.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be better than dead last, but you don't show up. I vote with my heart with everything. That's just how it is.
Not to brag, I put Philly very close to where they. Very close.
Where'd you have Houston, by the way? Where'd they end up?
Exactly where they finished stage 1.
Okay. All right.
I don't even think that's true. I think I had them at 4.
I was going to say, you were a madman if you put them at 2 in the preseason.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be it, guys. I hope you guys liked the reviews. I thought they were really good. And we now have we have these nice episodes. They're right around 150, so I won't forget the number. We can look back and see just how wrong we were at the end of the season. It's going to be great. And coming up is going to be preseason overall power rankings for us, and we definitely have at least, so a week is going to be the 28th and the 7th. So next week is the 28th. Then the not 14th, and then the 14th, or is there another week in there? Let me check. 28th, 4th, and then 11th. So we have 1, 2, 3 episodes before
2 that are preseason content, and then the third one will be
the preview of week 1 preview. Yeah.
Back in this week. So
February 11th, Monday, February 11th, which is in 2 weeks, is going to be season 2, episode 1, or however. Well, I mean, it's going to be episode 150 151. It'll be episode 151, but it's going to be like our normal episodes during the season. So we'll be right back in that. So we still have, I guess, a flex episode of. We don't know what we'll do. We'll see. And it's going to be episode 150, so maybe we'll just do like a gag episode. I don't know. We'll see. If you have any ideas of what you want us to do for episode 150 or for that flex episode, let us know on the comments on YouTube, or tweet at us, or Discord. All that stuff is iNoon Podcast, and the links to all that is down below. Do we have anything else before we head out to death?
We have a message from a new patron, Jeff. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to read this one.
All right.
He says, from a person that has lived their whole life in New England and roots for Boston teams, we aren't all bad. I respectfully disagree, Jeff. Anyways, moving on. Not today. Not giving you that one today, Jeff. If you'd lost yesterday, maybe I'd be a little more sympathetic, or Robert Kraft is a dirtbag. I'm getting into it. I don't care. Cheaters. Anyways, sorry. You're not a bad guy, Jeff. I'll give you that. I'm not saying you're a bad guy. Just saying you support terrible humans.
I would like to, while we're on the topic of football, I would like to point out that last year's Super Bowl was... Oh, wait, no, that's not how that works. Okay, this year's Super Bowl is 2 Overwatch League-owned teams. That's all I'll say.
You're not wrong. Yeah, last year was 2 cities, and the teams.
2 cities. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. It was like, oh, we got back-to-back years. No, it was just the cities. Philadelphia Fusion city, not ownership versus
Gladiators versus Uprising. Its own way here.
Yeah. Yep. We'll see.
It doesn't matter what league it is. I just go Gladiators, like always. Like, man, it's all about you.
Hey. They're bringing the greatest show on turf, so I can't wait to see Kurt Warner hand the ball off to Marshall Falk. That's what I'm.
Stan Kroenke, is that his name?
Those guys still play. Those guys still play, right?
I know there's people that absolutely despise the man, but Stan Kroenke, I'm all about you right now. Rooting for you, man.
I'm rooting for Kurt Warner and Marshall Falk. They're definitely still the starting running
Isaac
back and
Bruce,
QB.
right?
And Isaac Bruce, yes, there's another running or wide receiver, I think. Right?
Torrey Holt?
Torrey Holt! Wait, was he
going.
in? Yeah, he was. I'm thinking of all my old NFL Showdown cards because that was the era. I had a Jerome. Okay, we're not going down this rabbit hole, guys. We've got another show. If you guys are here for the live show, we're going to be recording Foul Play very shortly. If
Sure, you don't want to keep going. Go deeper. What about Azahar Hakim?
That one does not ring a bell. That's going to be it, guys. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Pace?
Make sure to follow us on all the social media stuff, High Noon Podcast on everything. If you do want to support us, get your message read on stream and all that good stuff, head over to patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. But that is going to be it for this episode, number 148, guys. Thank you so much for Deathblow. I am the Blevins. And remember, it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
I had this Jerome Bettis NFL Showdown card that I swiped through the reader so much that it destroyed the card, and I couldn't use it anymore. That's how much I love that card. That's how much
Ricky Prohl?
Ricky Prohl. That's a name I remember. Eddie George. Eddie George is my all-time favorite football player. If you're ever looking to buy me something football-related, Eddie George.
I already knew that, actually.